Are you writing that down? Oh boy. Make sure you're taking your notes, everybody.
Thank you so much for coming back and watching the second part to Luke chapter 2. Today it is supposed to be Christmas Day if we put this out on the right time. So happy, Merry Christmas wherever you are located and however you say that phrase. But we are really excited to be here with you. And if you're watching this on replay, thank you for watching this as well. But we are today diving back into Luke chapter 2. We're just going to finish this out. This one will be nice and short, just short and sweet, going to the last piece of the birth of Christ when the shepherds finally get to the manger. We're going to watch them get there. We're going to see their reaction and see what they do afterwards. So, Brandon, you doing good? You all set to go?
Yes.
Jacob, you all set?
I'm ready, man.
All right, let's do this thing. Okay, so Luke chapter 2, we are back in the English Standard Version of the Bible. It says in verse 15, "When the angels went away from them into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, 'Let us go over to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has made known to us.'" Ooh, that strikes something with me. Okay, anyways. "And they went with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger. And when they saw it, they made known the saying that had been told them concerning this child. And all those who heard it wondered what the shepherds had told them. But Mary treasured up all these things, pondering them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen as it had been told them." And that's it. That's where we're stopping. So right there at verse 20. So Jacob, do you have any thoughts on this as we walk through this passage?
Yeah, so the first thing, if you guys, and you should have, because the first part of the video was a lot of the context, but again, just think about the context of what's happening here, right? Because we see that the angels did what they were told. They were encountered by this angel of the Lord, and then these angels of hosts, or the heavenly hosts were praising God, and so they said, okay, let's go and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was very interesting that they went with haste, because they were probably excited, like we were saying in the last video. They were probably nervous. Probably nothing to this multitude has ever happened to them before. Culture didn't really treat them very well, most likely, as shepherds. So this was probably super exciting for them to go and do this little adventure. But that was honestly I'll stop there for now, because I don't want to get too far ahead. But that was probably the thing that I noticed the most, was just that they actually went and did it, and they found them, and they were excited to do this, and they told Mary all about this, and probably people didn't believe them, but I think Mary said, yeah, you know what, they're actually right, and that added to the craziness of the story.
You know, as I see that, I wonder what their haste must have meant for them. So what were the consequences for them ditching their flock, I guess is another way to word that.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's like their livelihood, right? So they're like leaving their flock exposed to any type of predators or people who are going to steal, because that was pretty common back then too. It wasn't as much as them guarding it from wild animals as it was from other people who are going to steal their flock, or just sheep individually and whittle them down. So there was that real danger that was happening. They also just kind of, like, sheep are stupid, right? Like, we know that because God calls us sheep all the time, and it's really because of that. It's really because we're just stupid sometimes. We just wander off. I mean, you just kind of like, you just wander off, green grass. I'm going to go that way. And that's
probably
what
about 6 to 7 times a day for me,
Yeah, man. What, the duck thing? Just let me see that face.
No, just wandering off, just like, oh, I was supposed to be doing this. Oh, here I am over here now,
How did I get here with a Coca-Cola in my hand and a wrench in my other hand?
Or it's always like one of those crazy things. You walk into a room, it's like, what was I in here for again? It's like, as quick as that is, and you probably just remembered in the other room. So, you got a point there.
Yeah. Why am I in the bathroom with my laptop?
One of those things to think about.
In the morning, like, what am I working on? What's happening? Yeah.
So I just think it's so interesting. Like, I mean, sheep are going to take off, right? Possibly. Or they might just stay there. It just depends on how they're feeling. And so they had to have like some faith that the angels are going to take care of them, is one of the things that I think of. Or like God's going to take care of them and just keep the sheep there. Or if they go away, he's going to take care of them somehow. Because, I mean, so I don't know if they're employed or if this is their own livelihood. They could have been employees, and at this point, or I think the term back then was slaves, right? So like they could have been employed by people working off a debt or just working because they had a place to live, and that's how slavery worked. It was really this employment type deal, mutual kind of stuff for the most part in Jewish culture. And so with this, were they that type, or were they actually the shepherd owners, kind of like how you see David being a shepherd boy and his dad owned the flock and things like that? Regardless, there's going to be some consequences from them taking off so fast and not having anybody watch the sheep. They find Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger, which was the key thing that we see in the passage before. That was the signifier to them. They don't even say wrapped in swaddling clothes because that was kind of a given. But laying in the manger was like the big key for them. When they saw it, one thing that I see here is really cool. So like they saw it and then they made it known. One thing that we don't think of with Christmas and with the shepherds a lot, or maybe you do, let us know. But one of the things that I don't usually, especially when I see a nativity scene, is I don't think of the shepherds just bolting when they see it. Like they hang around. They kind of just stay there for a minute, just in awe of what's happening. And that very well may have happened. But what you see in this context of they saw it, and then the next phrase, they made known, that contrast is very reminiscent of every time that somebody who is, like in the passage before, the angels just saying, glory to God in the highest, peace on earth with those that he is well pleased. The people that God is well pleased with are the people that hear his voice and obey him immediately. Like that's who he's very pleased with. And you see that when Moses doesn't obey him at the burning bush and how he gets displeased. After like they argue for a while. It takes a while, but he finally gets to the point where he's like, just go. Who am I? I am God. Like, what are you doing, Moses? But then you see with other people like Joshua, when the angel of the Lord tells him, walk around the city 7 times, and on the 7th time you're going to blow your horns 7 times, and after that you're going to shout, the place is going to fall down. And you see this crazy, insane plan, go through the mind of Joshua, a great warrior. And he's like, okay, we're doing that. They just go do it. And there was just a well-pleasing factor with that. And you see this all over in the Old Testament. Whenever somebody's just obeying, you see this was Hosea. So Hosea is told by God at the very beginning, go and marry this prostitute. Like that's his command from God. Go marry this prostitute. And I'm going to make an example of you for like the generation to come. And he's like, okay. And he goes and he grabs her and he marries her. Just crazy. And he knew what he was getting into, but it just reminds me of that same type of context. They saw it, then they made it known. It was like this immediate action, reaction type deal.
So this is something else that I'm thinking of too. So as we discussed in the previous video that, wow, I just completely forgot what I was going to say. I'm a sheep. Look at that. Whoa, it is gone. Oh, sorry. In the previous video, we discussed that they were in the same region. So it wasn't like... Are you writing that down? Oh, boy. Make sure you're taking your notes, everybody.
Yeah, man.
Ba, ba, ba.
A picture. Ooh, that's actually not half bad.
Thank you for that. Ba, ba, ba. I'm Brandon Bass. All right. Well, as we continue, so I'm thinking that obviously they were given these certain things to look for. You're looking for a newly born baby. It was a boy. It could be found in cattle feeding trough. Gosh. And so I'm thinking, like, if he's looking for these things, do you think maybe they went door to door, maybe though too, and say, like, do they? I wonder if they had to explain themselves to some people where it was like, hey, like, sorry to wake you up at this time. If I'm assuming it's nighttime, maybe still, and so do you think there was probably like other people with them too when they found? So probably it was like them. They went in, they saw, and they went back. And I don't know. Is there like a crowd of like 4 or 5 other people that's like, hey, we need to find out if that's there too? Or I mean, I don't know. Was it
no?
Just them? Okay.
I'm gonna think it's just them, and this is the reason why. I think it's a little creepy if you walk up to people and you're like, "Hey, dude, have you seen a baby?" You know, like, do you have a baby anywhere?
I would assume they would be more like, not right away, like, "Hey, where's your baby at?" I would hope not,
Where's
but
the baby? I heard he's in a trough. I want to see this.
Oh, okay.
This baby.
That would sound kind of weird now that you say it. It's
I know
like,
you got a baby
who
stashed
would put
in
a
your
baby
trough.
there?
Yeah.
Or I could see them running through town and just all the outskirts and just frantically all, however many there were, and just looking, no, not here, and just running
Right.
through,
Either way, I think they may have come off a little strong on that initial hit there. And I mean, they came off a little strong after. So that's kind of the same thing as after they see it, then they make it known by saying that they had been told all these things concerning this child. So what they're doing is saying, hey guys, angels just appeared, shepherds, right? Angels just appeared to us, and they sang this song, and there were tons of them in the heavens, and then all in the sky. Then we obeyed, and we went, we saw this child, and he's over there in the manger. And how many people came to the cave after that?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
We don't see any of that. So I wonder if people just thought they were just nuts, which goes back to what we looked at of Isaiah 53 about how he's going to come in a way that didn't attract anybody to him. Yeah. So I'm curious if like people just thought they were insane. And then you see Mary just treasuring it, right? She's eating this up. Mary, she sings a song in one of, like, you see Mary's song in, I think it's Matthew or something, but one of the gospel books. Anyways, she's treasuring this. What's that?
Yeah. Can I say something on that? I thought that was interesting. So she says, she treasured it and pondered them in her heart, pondering them in her heart. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I looked up NIV, and it was still that word pondering. I don't know if you guys have another version other than ESV or NIV with you.
Look it up.
Brandon, if you guys want to look that up. Because
what are you going to say,
though? What was the book and chapter you said?
Luke 2:19. So that word.
No. The other one you were talking about. Oh, okay. Never mind. Oh, you're seeing if there's a different word. I got you. Never mind.
Yeah, pondering. I just thought it was an interesting word.
So
but anyways,
there it is. Kept all these things in our heart and thought about them often.
Okay.
That's the same as
pondering. Well, I thought about that, and I said, okay, where is Mary coming from at this point? What has she been told by the Lord that now she's learning more about? So I went back to Luke 1, and we see in verse 26, it starts, angel Gabriel was sent from God to the city of Galilee, Nazareth, to a man with Joseph, house of David. There was a virgin named Mary. Came to her, greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you. And then it continues to say the conversation, and Mary said to the angel, well, how will this be since I'm a virgin? Because it says, do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. Behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call him Jesus. He will be the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give to the throne the father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and his kingdom will be no end. And so that's what Mary's coming with, right? And that's what she was left with. And that's kind of her mission. I mean, that's what she was left with. So I think it's very interesting when now there's a little bit more added to the story to where these shepherds come in, and they're basically saying what Gabriel said to them, which was, fear not, I bring good news. It's almost a confirmation of, yeah, Mary, you're not crazy. Like, we're telling other people, like, this is a real thing. And I think that's why she thought of them often or pondered them in her heart. She treasured it because she says, I'm sure she's feeling relieved and rejoicing. Wow, like, okay, this is a real thing, and like, praise God for it, because I'm not
Right.
crazy, right?
Well, that's
So
one of those things. I was gonna say that's one of those things where, I mean, the way I always see the story is like, oh, you know, you relate the shepherds and Mary so much together, where it's like she had no idea who these people were, probably had never seen them in her life, and where she is in her life right now, and all these things that are probably running through her mind, like you're saying, where these shepherds come up and an angel came and spoke to us about your son. Like, I can just imagine right away, like you could say, pondering them in her heart. She had to sit there and think about it. Like, wow, like this is, you know, she.
the same thing happened.
It's another one of those things where I couldn't imagine the headspace that she was in at that time. But like you said, probably very relieved.
Well, the same thing happened to her, and I think that's where she goes, "Oh, it happened to you too? Wow!" Like, where would you? I mean, wow.
Yeah. And I guess to like sum up all this stuff, like why don't we just kind of get our final thoughts here on this? So the whole passage of Luke 2, and just from the beginning to the end of that Luke 2, 1 through 20, what we see is this whole idea of how difficult this was and how affirming it became, I guess, to the people who were involved. So they started out, and it's a really sketchy situation. You know, they start out with where they're completely under the power and the authority of Caesar Augustus. So the guy, he's the big guy. You know, he is the God to everybody, self-proclaimed God to the world, which is the Roman Empire to them, the whole known world for them. That's what they cared about, was the Roman Empire. And so he is pulling out all the stops. It's a new taxation period. Everybody's going back to be registered in their homes. And he's enforcing all these crazy things, these edicts. So they have to go back. Terrible situation, terrible circumstance, all this baggage that they're going with, and dealing with all this stress. They get to this place where they kind of end up alone, away from everybody else, secluded in this kind of cave-like situation, where honestly it might have been a lot better than spending the holidays with your relatives, right? Because I mean, if you think about like not having to worry about gossip and all this other stuff, but just being able to be alone in that moment, that might have just been a bit of a blessing. But then they're just sitting there, and at the same time, this other thing's happening just right across the way, where this angel appears. Could be Gabriel, could be pre-incarnate Jesus himself, or co-incarnate. I don't know how you say that, because he's born and there, which is not outside the realm of possibility. I think that's awesome thought theory. But anyways, so you have this angel go to these shepherds and proclaim, this is happening. They sing a song, just totally praising God. Shepherds come running. They find this baby. And then they say to everybody that they can say it to, this is him. This is the Savior. And they tell everybody what the angel told them. And so Mary's hearing this and has got to be feeling like, this is actually him. This is worth it. Like, this is okay. This is going to be okay. You know, because this isn't the end for them. This is the very beginning. They're about to have to flee to Egypt. You know, they're about to have to start going through some really underground stuff while children are being hunted to death in Jerusalem and in Bethlehem and all this stuff. Like, they're being hunted down at the year 1 of Jesus' life. So they're about to go into it. They're also going into gossip again. So this is their firstborn, but everybody's like, well, this isn't really legit. And they're about to go right back into that world that they used to live in too. So it's not over. So I think it's just a really cool, again, fulfilling what the angel said, peace on earth to those. And he's given them who God is well pleased with, you know? And so she's feeling some peace here. She's hearing what's being proclaimed, and she's experiencing peace and just really eating it up. You know, I think that's what's going on here. So that's my final thought with wrapping it all up. What do you guys, Jacob, you have any final thoughts on this passage or anything to say to people about Christmas for this year? Been a crazy year for all of us here in the world in 2020. So anything to say at all, wrapping this up?
Yeah. And sorry if you hear the corgis, because I think someone's at the door. So,
That's
so they're
typical.
going all wild. But so the youth pastor in me sees this, and I say, okay, how does it relate to us, right? Like, what do we get from this? And I think it's really good to see the context and how real it is. And for me, I look at it and say, wow, Jesus came from mess. And we see, like you're saying, Casey, the rest of the story, it's so messy. And we look at 2020 and we go, this sucks. And it's messy and it's not been fun. And I look at this story and I say, well, that didn't look very fun. And it was really messy. And so for us, and for me sitting here, I say, wow, like it's been a tough year. I've gone through a lot of stuff, but Jesus can relate to me and he's still in control. And I think that was what was being preached, right? That was what was being foreshadowed, is this little baby that's coming from this mess and that just doesn't seem like there's a lot of stability. Actually, he's going to bring stability for the rest of the world. And that's huge. But it's so unorthodox, right? It doesn't make sense. It's not your typical story, you know, the white horse coming to defeat the Roman Empire. Nope, it's this baby in a trough and in a manger, and it doesn't make sense, and it's messy, and he's not very powerful, but in the end, he's victorious, and we're victorious with him. So that's what I got from some of it.
Yeah, that makes me wonder too about like just the reality of what it's like to live in this whole COVID time situation this year, and sometimes God does things in ways we just don't expect. Actually, most of the time, God does things in ways that we just don't expect. One of the questions we've been asking just about everybody in our church this season has been, what gift has God given you through COVID? And what we want people to start looking at God like is, which is just the reality of how he works, is he doesn't always work in the peaks, but most of the time, and almost every time, he works the most in your life in the valley. And so when it's a rough season, you're pressing harder into where is God, because he's awesomely at work. And so where is he? Where is he? Where is he? You're just praying harder and harder. So what gift has God given you through COVID is definitely my thing. But Brandon, what do you have to say to people to sum this up a little bit, or just to give them a word for Christmas?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of my thing too, where now I'm seeing this story a little bit differently now as I'm growing older and growing stronger in my relationship with Jesus, where you would read it and see that of how amazing this is and how it all came to happen. And now, you know, we are saved from sin. And now I see that story as in when we're putting it into how their lives were actually affected and how they were feeling, and not just kind of thinking of the story itself. There's probably so much suffering going on, like a bunch of inconveniences, and they're probably just uncomfortable and things like that, where there's so much good that came out of that. And it's a good thing to remember that even in the suffering and the inconveniences that we seem to be going through, and we always think like, why is this happening to me? You know, there's always the underlying fact that God has a plan, and it's our faith to just believe in him that what we're going through isn't the end, and that there's probably something great that is going to come out of it. And so, like you were saying, Casey, as like a personal testimony of mine, the way I came to find Jesus was through suffering. I don't mind sharing it because I you know, the death of my grandfather, you could tell there was something different about him when he got saved. And all he could do was just share the story of Jesus and who he was and what he's done for him in his life. And I just loved that. And I really I wanted that. And unfortunately, when he passed away earlier than, you know, we think that, you know, that in an untimely matter, I was kind of devastated. And I remember my mom telling me, while it's upsetting that he's gone and we're suffering through it, that's not the end though. He's in heaven with Jesus and they're celebrating. And that was one of the things where I could just tell there was something different about him. And I wanted that too. And I really, really wanted that. And so through the suffering of that, while it may be unfortunate, I know that I'm going to see him again. And he's one of the main reasons why I came to find Jesus. So it's one of those things where in the suffering of Mary and Joseph and all these things they're going through, we got the birth of Jesus out of it. And
that's so good. And that's really a great place for us to really to leave it. Because I mean, this year that is the news, right? So it's not just that Jesus was born, although that in itself is just an absolute miracle, but what he was born for. So this was a child who was born in the worst situation ever, not attracting anybody to himself, came here for a very specific reason, which was to die for us in our place. And so this whole gift that we have of Jesus displayed here in Luke 2 culminates on the cross and then is transcended through the grave and the defeated grave that we see 3 days later, and him ascending to heaven. It's just such a beautiful picture of redemption, and that's what the angels are talking about, right? Like, this is the Savior named Christ, and he has come to rescue everybody from their sin, to rescue everybody from what they're not worthy of doing, which is coming to God on their own. And we need him. We need him. And when you experience God and you look at him face to face, you can't walk away unchanged. Just like your grandpa, just like so many other people that we could tell stories of all day. But the reality is that's what we want to remember as we go into this day today, is that when you stare at God's face, you come away changed. So let's do that as we finish out Christmas today and as we celebrate going into this new year. So thank you so much for watching this. Again, if you have any way of commenting, being a part of this community, we just thank you for that. Throw some comments, throw some likes to share this with other people around you and encourage them with the gospel as well. We will see you probably next year. But thanks so much. We'll see you.